Hey, good evening, and welcome to to Tracy's final event for Legendborn. We are here with Tracy Deonn and Daniel José Older to talk about Tracy's new book, Legendborn, and do some reading. I'm going to read you a little bit of our code of conduct, introduce those two, then I'm out of here, and we're going to let them get the show started. All right, I'm Kathy Burnett. I own Brainlair Books here in South Bend, Indiana. And our code of conduct pertains to every event we do, whether in person or online. Our purpose is to build a stronger community centered around the discussion of inclusive literature. Our goal is to create an environment where traditionally marginalized voices feel welcome to participate, speak up, ask questions, and engage in conversation. We are dedicated to providing a harassment-free environment for everyone, regardless of gender, gender identity and expression, age, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, or religion. We do not tolerate harassment of participants in any form. All attendees, speakers, sponsors, and volunteers at any Brainlair event are required to agree with the following code of conduct. Participants engaging in any harassing behavior, and I put a link for you guys, you can read the whole thing, will be removed and you will be banned from events. And Brainlair is the sole judge of whether something is harassment. There are no questions. If we decide, we kick you out. Don't get kicked out. Come here, enjoy us, have a fun time. All right, first I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Tracy, then a little bit about Daniel. Tracy is the writer and second-generation fan. She grew up in Central North Carolina, where she devoured fantasy books and Southern food in equal measure. After earning her master's degree in communication and performance studies from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, Tracy worked in live theater, video game production, that's awesome, and K-12 education. When she's not writing, she speaks on panels at science fiction and fantasy conventions. She can be found on Twitter at Tracy Deonn or online at tracydeonn.com. All right. Daniel has always loved monsters, whether historical, prehistorical, or imaginary. His debut series for adults, the Shadowshaper Cipher, has earned starred reviews, the International Latino Book Award, a New York Times Notable Book, and NPR Best Book of the Year. That's awesome. His debut middle grade series, Dactyl Squad, was named to the New York Times Notable Book list and to the NPR and Washington Post Best Book of the Year list. He has worked as a bike messenger, a waiter, and a teacher. That's awesome. All right, so that's the two of them. I'm going to get out of here and let them start talking. Welcome. We're so glad you guys are here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey.
I'm laughing because I feel like it says something when you hear somebody's bio read out loud and you're over there like filling in. I'm like, okay, but he also was a paramedic. I'm like, and he did this. Like, that's good. That means we're friends.
Right. And let's start there. We're gonna read, but let's start with the fact that we go back before, you were a published author, back to the early days of North Carolina, at cons hanging out. That's wild.
It's like, I think I was thinking about it. It's like January of 2017 or something is when I met you. And that was before I was trying to get published, before I was even thinking about publishing. I don't even think I knew what querying was. Like, that was early days. And I will say that getting Legendborn published and the first few steps of getting Legendborn published, I definitely always think about a conversation I had with you where I was like, so do you think I should go, do you think I should go for this? Do you think that, and you're just like, yes, what are you talking about? Like, yes. Yeah. Cause it was like, some people may know the story is that I was in touch with my now editor, Lisa, because of another project. And then Lisa had said, oh, do you want to see more, do you have any more fiction? And I was like, that's so nice of her to ask. And then I sat on that for like 6 months. And then I called Daniel and was like, do you think she was serious?
I probably swore. Did I swear?
Yeah. And Daniel was like, Yes, she's serious. What are you talking about? Editors don't have time to not read. Like, what? What are you doing? So it was a good check, but it was hilarious. It was hilarious. Yes.
Wow. Well, let me say that I'm very proud of you. I don't want that to sound condescending, but as your older brother, I'm proud of you. You did the fucking thing. I'm sorry. You did the thing. The book is terrific. You're doing the thing continually. You did an amazing job, and you're going to keep doing an amazing job. And I'm just really happy to see you shine, man.
Oh, thank you. I feel that. You do feel like my older brother, like in such a good, important way. Thank you. Oh, moment.
Get right into it.
I know. I'm like,
no, I'm kidding. Let's read, and then we'll start talking.
Or else we won't do it all. Okay, so I'll preface a little bit about the scene.
Wait, let me prep first by saying that my allergies are hell right now. So if I mute and disappear, it's because I'm trying not to gross everybody out by hawking all kinds of disgusting sounds into the microphone. Just so you know, because it's a gross thing happening in my face right now. Carry on.
I hope you feel better soon. It's a bad time to have allergies.
I know, but it's definitely allergies.
All right, so the scene. I was teasing people on social media. I was like, we'll see what scene we're doing. What is Daniel reading? So we're reading from the tippy top of chapter 7 of Legendborn. And so if you haven't read the book, this is not super spoilery. It is a scene between Bree and a character named Nick. And it was one of their early interactions. I think that's what we're gonna do. And she just got attacked by a monster.
Yeah. A hellhound.
A hellhound. She just got.
The italics? Are you doing the italics? Or am I doing?
You're gonna do. So you'll do in the italics. You'll do the hellhound. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I'll do the other line.
Okay.
We've rehearsed this. No, we haven't. Okay. Okay, are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Voices fade in and out. What happened?
Hellhound saliva.
Feels like my head is dunked underwater, drawn up under again. On campus? Corporeal? That's impossible.
Help me get her on the table.
Falling down to the cold and the dark. The voices grow faint. Who is she? Ether isn't meant for once-borns. If she...
It's eating through her bones. Do it. Now. All
right. Little break. And the high-pitched rhythmic trill of crickets pulses against my skull. My eyes open to find a white ceiling with wide exposed wooden beams and a ceiling fan spinning lazy circles. I try sitting and fail spectacularly. My arms aren't working.
You're all right.
A gentle palm presses my shoulder down. Nick withdraws his hand. He's standing beside the bed, one sleeve of his hoodie torn to shreds. A white sheet covers the rest of my body, but underneath it, an intense itch crawls up, around, and over my arms. An awkward roll dislodges one limb. Then panic rises. Thick layers of gauze wrap my right arm from knuckle to elbow. I yank my left shoulder back to confirm what the itching is already telling me, but the bedding catches.
Careful.
Nick cautions. He folds the sheet back to expose my left arm, bandaged identically to the first.
You were injured.
Where am I? I croak. My throat feels like sandpaper someone set on fire.
I brought you to our healer.
Nick reaches for a glass of water on a bedside table behind him. There's a straw crooked out of the top, and he brings the glass closer. It's awkward, and it makes me feel like a child, but I'm too thirsty to turn him down. He didn't really answer my question, and I'm sure he knows that, but there are other ways to figure out where I am. The room is comfortable in an expensive ski lodge sort of way, but the building feels old. Furniture and wallpaper done in heavy fabrics and textures no one uses in the updated homes. Tall ceilings, mahogany hardwood floors, and wide planks. To my right, an upholstered seat below a tall window cracked open to the night, and the chirping of crickets. No lights beyond the glass pane. In the distance, the bell tower erupts in Westminster quarters, the opening notes of the melody clear, but not close. Near campus, then. I finish drinking. Nick puts the glass down and moves to the window seat to sit, his expression solemn. Nothing like the Nick I met outside Lenore.
What do you remember?
I frown, images coming in quick flashes, light in the sky, running, Nick wielding a sword, a monster. My eyes key to his in an instant. You killed it. He nods.
I killed it.
The bell tower chimes the hour. 1, 2. You saved me. 3. He holds my gaze. 4. Nods again. 5. A realization clear and true before I even speak it aloud. You're Legendborn. 6. He inclines his head.
Yep. You must be a new page. William said he didn't recognize you.
I shake my head. 7. He frowns, studying my face.
But you saw the hellhound.
When the tower strikes 8, Nick goes still as a statue. I honestly don't know who's more stunned, him or me. We search each other's faces as if the next step in this conversation might be written on our skin. 9, 10. All I see are the hard lines of his jaw and his eyes wide and wary. The strands of his straw-colored hair are still darkened from perspiration. 11. Silence. 11 o'clock. Not quite 3 hours since we met. Close to campus, in an old building, historic home, maybe. All clues folded together. He narrows his eyes in speculation.
If you know I'm Legendborn, then you must know you're speaking within the code. You can answer me freely. How do you know that word?
I chew on my bottom lip to buy myself time. The way he says code sounds as if there should be a formal trust between us. Sure, Tor and Cell possess an easy ruthlessness that I can't at the moment find in Nick's face, but that doesn't mean he's safe. If he's Legendborn, he could be dangerous. What will you do to me if I answer that question? Surprise ripples across his features.
Do to you?
I nod, my heart thumping in my chest. Threaten me? Break something I'd rather keep in one piece? Turn me over to the cops? His blue eyes dim, a storm cloud crossing the sky.
I'm not going to do any of those things.
He gestures toward my arms.
Why would I bring you here to our healer if I wanted to injure you? If I wanted you to end up with the police, why didn't I drop you off in front of a hospital?
Maybe you still plan to dump me at a hospital, I shoot back. Maybe the police are on the way. A wide smile spreads across his face, and just like that, he's Nick from the dining hall again, amused and wry.
Bree, short for Brianna. Pushy and stubborn. She doesn't accept what she sees with her own eyes, won't accept what she hears with her own ears.
He appears to turn an idea over in his head before pinning it to me with his eyes to see if it fits.
Or at least that's what she'd like me to believe. Is Bree even your real name?
Bristling, I ask, what about my memory? You could still erase that. His grin falls away.
No, I couldn't. Hey.
Hey, there we go.
Right. It's really weird not getting to have actual applause.
I know. We just have to like clap.
Oh,
thank you. Applause in the chat. So I love that scene because we get to see Bree using her skills to figure out where she is. And it was really a fun scene because if she's groggy and Nick is not saying, "Oh, thank you, look at that, we have all this like clapping, that's so nice."
Oh yeah, that's sweet.
We have all, Bree wakes up, she's in a strange place, she doesn't know where she is, she's just been injured, her arms are in gauze, and she's trying to figure out where she is. So she asks a question at the top of the scene, "Where am I?" And
doesn't
Nick
get an answer.
Doesn't get an answer.
Right.
But instead of like trying to fight it, she just goes into sneak mode.
Right.
and is like, let me listen for where, like, what sounds am I hearing? What building am I in? You know, what does the furniture look like?
What time is it?
What time is it? Yeah, like she's doing all this extra work at the same time that she's trying to hold a conversation with him. And I just love that. I just love that she is she's smart. She's thinking on a couple different levels at one time, and that she's trying to outsmart Nick, but then of course she doesn't know enough to outsmart him, which I feel like is such a that's like such a teen thing to do, right? Is like, you know enough to be dangerous, and so you're gonna try and be slick, but then sometimes somebody comes to you and presents new information, you ain't as slick as you thought, right?
Right. Right. All that, exactly. Yes. I particularly like the listening to the bells ringing, because there's something so peaceful about it, right? And counting it. So even in this moment of like tension and danger potentially, plus it's coming right on the heels of like an actual real attack by a monster, the first big one we see. And you know, and then there's this really peaceful thing about those bells and counting them. And like it's almost like it lulls her a little bit. And then there's the tension, I think, too, between like Nick being like caring for her, but she doesn't trust him, and she knows she shouldn't trust him, but she wants to.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question: are you Team Nick or Team Sal?
What? This is
I know you can't answer that.
This connection went out. I guess I can't. Whoop. I can't answer that. I mean, I can tell you that there are.
I would like to know what the audience thinks while we're talking, but keep going.
Well, they've been very loud. We see there's like a lot of Team Sal. There's some Team Nick. I can't, I can't answer that question. It's funny. I did a podcast with Marissa Meyer, and she was like, well, how did you write this not knowing? And I was like, not knowing the answer, I think, is why it works well, because I wrote the book indecisive. Right. At times, like, I feel like you can see that I wrote it indecisively because there are such genuine reasons to like each of those boys.
And that's how it should be, right?
Yes. Yes. I don't like those love triangles or the setup. This is a setup for a love triangle. We're not full swing yet, right? But like, I don't like the setup where it's clear one dude is just
trash.
Just trash.
Yeah, I hate that too. Someone said Team Bree in the comments, and that's really what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Team Bree, right? Like it's all day, all night. But no, I feel you. I hate it when it when you're reading the book and you're like, why are we even pretending like there's an option here? They do it too in like rom-coms where someone's married to a bag of trash, and then like this amazing perfect person comes along and is like, I don't know if you're feeling what I'm feeling. You're literally married to a trash can. What's the problem? It's not good storytelling, right?
No, it's not. It's not. And you can see the author's hand. You can see the screenwriter's hand. You're like, I see you. I see exactly what you're doing. And so, I will say there were versions of the book where I felt like it was more unbalanced. And I had to go back and I revised it to try and make it more balanced. And then I just realized, like, I don't know. So why not just treat almost every encounter with those boys, why not just treat them as like he could be the one? And that he could be the oneness. I mean, that to me, that was who I was when I was 16.
Yep.
So many people were about to be the one.
Right. Literally everyone was the one.
Literally.
The one for all time.
For all time. The love of my life. Yes.
Yeah. There were 16-year-olds that weren't like that, but I didn't understand them. Like, y'all just don't think everyone is the one. That seems like basic, but yeah. Okay. So you're saying basically you were writing 2 rom-coms in the midst of a contemporary fantasy that's also, we were talking earlier, a mystery that deals with real shit that's going on in the world. Is there anything else you wanted to throw in there? You go to space at any point in time?
Integrating Welsh. I've tried to bring, that I don't even speak in there. Lots of, juggling the whole corpus of Arthuriana and picking which parts I want to play with. It was a little bit of work to write this book.
What was it? And look, let me just say, I joke, but that's one of the things that's great about this book is that all those things feel very seamless. Like it never feels like you're shoving a bunch of shit in a bag that's too small. we've all done that. Tote bags, man. Fuck tote bags. Let's talk about that. No, I'm just kidding. Let's not talk about tote bags. But it doesn't feel like you're trying to shove too much stuff into something that doesn't, it all fits and it flows together and it feels very natural. So one question I have is sort of just how did you do that? And the other question I actually want to start with, though, so stick a pin in that one. I'm curious about the seed of this book. Like, what was the moment? You said when we first met and started hanging out as friends, you hadn't even written this at all.
No.
So first of all, that wasn't actually that long ago. So this was pretty fast. But what was the moment where you were like, this is the book?
So, I mean, I think Bree has been with me loosely, not named, but like super loosely, as like the image of a girl who just needs to have an answer pretty much like since like 2008. That was like not long after I lost my mom. And I for anyone who hasn't heard this story, I'll tell it briefly, but like my mom passed away, and within pretty quickly after that, I started asking questions the way you do when a loved one goes. You start thinking about questions that are unanswered, and found out that she had lost her mom, my grandmother, when she was my age, like within a couple months. We were like the same age. And I was like, that's weird. And then I asked my aunt, what happened to my great grandmother? And she said, oh, same thing, about, this age or whatever. And I remember being like, this is weird. That's 3 generations. Like, what is this story? How could this be a thing? And what does it mean when some stories, I don't have the answer to, but then other people's families can, in legend, for example, in lore, in life, just have like all these answers all the way back to forever, So it just seems like, especially as a Black American, the idea of not having the story of an ancestor's life, or not having a story of a great-great-grand's life it's something that we walk around with. And having it happen recently, I was like, this is weird. So that birthed Bree. But then the actual, this is a book moment was probably September 2017. I was in the airport in Atlanta, flying home from DragonCon.
Wow.
And I opened up my laptop, and I think I wrote I wrote a scene where Bree was checking into her dorm. She was talking to a woman who was like a receptionist or something, and trying to get all her information for her dorm room. And she was frustrated that this woman was talking about paperwork that had been submitted and blah, blah, blah. And she just wanted to be angry at her. Like, why are you putting me through all this rigmarole? I'm here. I just want to go to the room. I want to be by myself. And I remember, and that was like the first scene of Bree. And that scene didn't make it into the book, but the vibe is there.
Right. Sometimes it's like that, right?
Yes, the vibe persists. I mean, Bree stays angry this whole book. Like, I love that she doesn't. She has very little tolerance for certain types of things. Her anger doesn't go away at the end. That's not the point.
Right. That's not what the book is about, getting rid of anger. Thank God. So glad.
It would have been so easy, right? Like, because that's how so many people write books.
Yes.
It's like, and now we're at peace.
Right.
And then
and you're like, you're lying to me.
Yes, like all was well, whatever, like it's just like, no, that's not, I don't think so. So
when did the Arthur stuff come
in?
Wait, first, before you answer that, did you already know about, did you already have a lot of the research kind of done and in the bag, or did you have to go and, good grief, man. Okay.
No, I did. I mean, I knew a lot. What'd you say?
When did the Arthur stuff come in? When, did that all come together?
So as soon as I started writing in 2017, started thinking about what, this girl who's looking for this answer about what happened to her mom,
right? And
starting in me noodling around, about that, whose stories get lost in history and whose stories get forcibly erased even, and then whose stories persist and just become legendary and become immortalized. And so that took me to Arthur pretty quickly. I am a fan of some of the King Arthur legends and stories. I say some of because I haven't read them all, but there's so many. We're talking 1,500 years of stories about this figure and this group of figures. There's a ton. And I just started thinking about, arguably Arthur is one of our most famous epic worldwide legends that just persist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, that would be an interesting question to ask. Like, what would it put those two things together? Like, there's a legend that has all of this longevity to it and this cultural significance and impact. And it, legends are different than myth. They usually have a person who actually lived, or we have accepted a sort of a historical fact that they lived. Legends are tied to history. Myths don't. Myths are not tied to history. They're typically made up. There's allegories and stories about figures, and they're not technically, something you would point to as having historical merit or fact or a year. Like you wouldn't do that. So, I was like, well, so then we're talking about a group of legends. It's roughly based around a human person, a whole human person, and I'm like, well, not every human person who's amazing has been immortalized. And there's all sorts of reasons why that happened. Why don't we talk about it? So that's kind of where I got to Arthur. And I think that actually is like a plus, because this isn't a King Arthur book.
Right.
Like, I think some people have been like, oh, how did you start? Why'd you start with Arthur? And I'm like, I did not. I did not start with Arthur. And Arthur came along for the ride to help me tell the story I wanted to tell. That's Arthur I love it. I love playing with it. I love manipulating the magic system, coming up with all that stuff. But it's not an Arthur book. It's not about King Arthur. It's about Bree,
Right. I almost stopped to spoil it, but I'm not going to do that. But yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's true you can see that in the kind of like way that the book itself came about, right? Because it really did start from you dealing with your stuff. And then it was like, how are we going to get there? And what myths are we going to pull on, and what legends, like you say, and then did you kind of like poke around for different ones, and then it was like Arthur's the one, or did you pretty much know like this is what it's going to be?
I pretty much knew, because I knew that I wanted to build a magic system. Because I love, if you've read the book, I love very detailed.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You have two systems.
Yes. So, I mean, I knew, Arthur, Arthur has the narrative weight and the narrative spread to accommodate a very cool magic system. If you ask the question, how could the Round Table persist to the modern day? And so I was like, oh, that's going to be fun, So like some of that was me as a craft person saying like, this would be the most fun story to make real. And if we make those legends real and we make them live today, then what sort of like massive experiment would it be to try and make that actually feel real? And, what would I have to come up with to make it believable? Because I want to write a contemporary fantasy, because I love contemporary fantasy, as someone who also loves contemporary fantasy. So that's how that happened.
And then I think what I appreciate, I think what so many readers appreciate about it is that, how like when you read like old time stuff and it's about a whole bunch of white people doing a bunch of white things and like they're having their romances and everything, and like you're reading it and you're like, y'all probably owned human beings, or like maybe you're rich because someone else did and you profited off it, right? Like, and like there's always been, we've always talked about it, but it's like now people are talking about it a lot more and looking back and questioning, and it's really messed up when you start to look back on it, especially because all those books that we talk about and worship and etc., the canon, don't talk about it, right? Like we have to do the talking about it, and it's like anytime, like if you were to have written a book about a legacy that went on from Arthur down through the ages and was passed on, and then just conveniently like negated to talk about the fact that a lot of those people have power and continue to have power probably because they owned other human beings, Black human beings, it would have felt like a lie, right? But you decided to lean into that and deal with the truth of that, and also create, I don't know how much we can talk about that without spoilers, but counterbalance it in different ways.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Talk about that.
Well, I don't want to spoil, like I said. So whatever part you're comfortable with dealing with that end of things.
Talk about that. I mean, it would have been a lie. It would have been false to try and act like that, you know, doesn't have a connection. I mean, particularly the way I formulated King Arthur and the Round Table as living today was in a secret society. And secret societies are, you know, a sort of off the grid, on the grid. Everybody knows about it, but you don't ask questions, way for generations and generations of white men to contain power and to pass on power and to consolidate power. And for, you know, there's so many connections that happen, you know, in the public, in the professional, in the sphere, in the government sphere.
Right.
Yeah, because people are in the right connections. And like, I went to UNC Chapel Hill and I love that school. And one of the things that I love about it is that there are secret societies like that. And, you know, they're in buildings, they're in all these historic buildings. And there's, you know, there's a Mason marker, I think at the base of Old East, which is the oldest public school residential dorm in the country.
Right.
And that's the building that Bree lives in the book. And so like the Masons are a secret society, like it's there. And so but enslaved people built that building.
Right.
So it was just like, okay, but if I pull them forward, then they're going to be right. That's where they would survive. That's where they would most likely thrive, is in a secret space where there's hierarchy and there's rules, and no one's going to ask how you get in, because everyone assumes that they get you and that they make the choice, and that it's or it's in your blood, right? It's like you know, it's your dad and your dad and your dad. So, you know, I felt like I couldn't bring them into that space, into that secret society space, and have it not be also address the fact that, you know, we're men who founded the country, you know, did so through labor of others, through stolen labor, through bodies that work, right? And so what really brought it home though is putting it at UNC. I mean,
you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I mean, we've been there before, like, you know, putting it at UNC.
Say that when you brought me to the statue.
I did. I brought Daniel to. So the statue in the book is based off of Silent Sam, which is a real statue. The car statue in the book is based off of that. It looks the same.
Not anymore, right?
But it's down. Yeah.
Hey.
You know, like UNC was built by enslaved people. It was built in the late 1700s, not long after the Revolutionary War. It is an old school, and you know, enslaved people worked on campus for people. They worked for the university to build buildings, and you know, there's all sorts of documentation about it in UNC's old archives. So I could do primary source research about which buildings were built by, you know, enslaved people and who owned that person and all that stuff. And once that was the setting, then I was like, oh, it's on now, like like now I'm gonna have to, you know, have her bump into these realities, because that's what it's like as a student at UNC. You know, as much as Silent Sam was up when I was there, I was there for degrees, and so I would walk past them and just be like, I mean, you know, like they're honoring a certain type of history, a certain version of history. There are other people who live that history too. And those fights and those battles don't get a statue. Right.
And then there is another statue and like another moment with the statue that you brought me to on campus. And I just remember like the strength of how complex those feelings were about that second statue, right? Because none of it is simple. But can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, that was the Unsung Founders Memorial. So it's a black, in the table, it's this black, I think it's like an obsidian or, you know, slate. I'm not sure the material, but it's huge. It's a big table. And underneath it are bodies of enslaved peoples and indentured servants, Black Americans, all lifting up the table. And it's supposed to sort of symbolically show that they are the unsung founders who founded the university, and they're lifting up and sort of, but it's got this like Atlas type overtone.
Right.
But I'm like, and like you look at them and they're like, why are they, you know, working, and why are they underneath the surface that I'm just going to put my sandwich on? Like the vibe is real weird about how they set that memorial up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I helped raise money for that as an undergrad. Wow. Lots of stories about how many people did not want to give money for that.
I'm sure. Yeah. Man, so this is like just a you book on so many levels. Like
Yes, I know. I'm like the more I feel like my best friends, like the people who like have known me for years, are just like, yeah, this is just a Tracy book. This is just the inside of Tracy's brain on paper.
Doesn't it feel good to get it out though?
Yes, it was therapeutic. I think it actually, I think it, for me and my family history, I think it was important to document it and give it space, weight, and power.
Yeah, I always think of like there's like a dual mechanism spiritually at play with writing that is both like you're invoking, you're bringing spirits in, and you're cleansing out spirits at the same time, and by spirits we can mean energy, whatever it is, like both are happening, right? And depending on how much you're tuned in and listening and really working that, like it's going to change the game. But you can really feel with this book that you were doing both, you're invoking and you're also cleansing and healing, and that's such a key part of being a writer.
Yeah. I mean,
now it's in the world. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and also it becomes an offering, right?
Like, exactly.
My feeling about the book on like a spiritual sense is like this is an offering,
right?
A gift to myself. Like I needed this book, but it's an offering to, I don't know, the women in my family who had unanswered questions, to all the women, all of the people, in my community's history who didn't have the answers to the questions. I'm like, this is an offering that I can give. So that's how it feels now, especially because it's out and I'm seeing the response from people who had lived similar pains.
Right.
Went to predominantly white institution and had to deal with all those comments, like all the stuff that Bree deals with. That all happened to me. I didn't make up a single microaggression.
Right. I
didn't need to.
Yeah.
But I was like, there's always that guy who's like, oh, well, this, the representation of racism in this book is artificial.
You got that already? Of course you do.
No, but I know he's out there. I'm waiting. He'll show up one day. And but I was in my mind, I was like, well, let me just put it out there and be like, all these I can cite. I can put all of those down as an experience I had.
Yeah.
Except for sitting in back of the police car. But that didn't happen. But the conversation in the police car did happen. Oh, man.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I have one more question, and then maybe we could open up to the audience. I was just curious about process-wise too. Like, are you I just love hearing how writers write, but are you someone that sits down and just like spits it out and then rearranges it and puts it back together in a different way? Or did you do a big, like, elaborate outline? Like, what sign are you?
I'm a Gemini, double Gemini.
Good grief. Anyway, okay, just answer the question then. Forget
it. I'm a double Gemini.
You got it great.
A Libra moon, so it's just like all air and all this all the time. So I was raised by a Virgo, very intense Virgo. So I have spreadsheets of good intentions. I have so many spreadsheets about this book because there's so much research that went into it.
That is the Virgo.
Yeah, that's like being raised by a single mom Virgo. I couldn't, it's a blessing now because
it's great. It's great.
Because now I can, now I have a spreadsheet and I wrap myself around it and be happy. But so I've got that, and then I think I had whiteboards all over the place, and I had an outline. I had probably a 40-page outline, which is massive. And I found out very quickly that I couldn't use it. Like I end up writing. What I do is I outline to my best of my ability, and then what I strip out sort of like the minutia moments that could flex, where I'm like, it doesn't have to happen that way, but then leave the tentpole moments. So I do use a combination of K.M. Weiland's creating character arts. Hers is wonderful because all of the Save the Cat type stuff is tied to a character arc. It's tied to the character's emotional state, which I feel like is critical because like you could do Save the Cat without emotions and just make sure the events happen. And then that's, you just have it's happening around a person. But so I use a combination of that. I outline and then write maybe an eighth of the book at a time. And then kind of peer up like a meerkat and look around.
Like a loaf cat?
Yeah, yes, like a loft cat. I see what you did. And see, like, if I want to keep writing in that direction or not. And then sometimes I don't. And then I'll outline again.
Do you see the Geminis rioting in the chat right now? Because I knew Danielle was here. That's why I had to jump some Gemini. I love you all. You're wonderful people. But that is a very Virgo. That is a very Virgo approach. Not for nothing. Like, you really went in, made a whole thing, and then this is when the Gemini showed up. You threw a bomb at it, blew that whole shit up, and then kept the little like scraps that remain.
Yeah,
okay.
It's fun. It's real fun in here, but like. But I will say, like, some of the best stuff comes when you don't outline. I know you know this, as a Pantser. You're like an eternal Pantser, aren't you?
Oh, I thought you said Cancer, and I was like, no. I do love Cancers, but I'm a Capricorn. Actually, I'm not anymore, but I did used to be for the first like 15 books. I was like a Pantser, and it's a new year, it's a new day, so I'm trying something different. But yeah, I try different things.
Yeah.
It's a whole new. I'm actually doing kind of like you, like just creating this very elaborate, like taking a lot of notes, making all these tent poles, and then we'll see what happens. Throwing bombs at it.
Yeah, I mean, like I knew. I don't know if I told you this. I knew the last chapter of Legendborn before I finished the book. Like probably at like 10,000 words, I wrote the last chapter.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
That is. I don't know what to say about that. That's awesome.
That's probably the weirdest part of my process. That
you know what though? I get that. That's actually I do get that. Like I wouldn't have written it ever, but I definitely do have a moment early on when I see where we're going, and I'll usually get like a scene. I think we've talked about this, like with Shadowhouse Fall. Like I could see this moment that I really wanted to happen in the ending, and then I would just write towards that. And I was like, if I can make that moment make sense, this book is going to be badass. And if I can't, the whole thing is going to fall apart.
And it worked.
Thank you. And that was it's like you throw a grappling hook and then you just kind of like get there.
Yes. Or you do to me, it's sort of like a lighthouse, like you're far out in ocean and you don't know what's going on and there may be storms and whatever, but there's this
get to that point. Right.
There. But the thing is you have to earn that, right? Exactly. Like, so I could write the scene, but I have to make sure that I've earned it on the way. And, the last chapter, the closing image, I always knew what that was going to be. I always, the conversation that Bree has with another character at the end, I always knew that conversation was going to happen. That conversation changed, like probably 30%.
Right.
Vision, but like a big chunk of it stayed the exact same.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Okay.
We should. Wait, what time is it? Do we have time?
I can't believe we just talked for like 48 minutes.
Oh, shit. Sorry, everybody.
I know.
Are we out of time?
No. We can do Q&A.
I can see the time because I have the thing is full screen. Okay. All right. We can do one question.
We can do one?
No, we can do a couple. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's take a while. I love that there's like a whole conversation happening in the chat right now. It's hilarious.
Oh my goodness, y'all. Okay, so do we go to ask a question? How do we get
someone ask a question. They're just busy talking about their signs. What if I started?
Oh, I clicked ask a question. Let me see. Is that
you asking a question? Oh, Danielle. Look at Danielle, she's so little.
What should I do? Okay, I clicked the like.
Apparently.
I could ask the questions if you guys want.
Please, please.
All right. As a Black woman,
questions. Okay, I'm sorry. I got it now. I got it. Thank you.
This is going to Tracy. As a Black woman, how does it feel to occupy space in such a grand way in the Arthurian aggregate?
There we go.
How does it feel to occupy space in such a grand way? I mean, it feels pretty wild, but it also feels like it's our turn. There's a feeling of just like, of course I'm up, particularly because I, having done so much research on Arthuriana, these writers, pretty much almost entirely white men from parts of Europe for the 12th century, the 14th century, the 15th century, were taking other people's Arthuriana and adding their original characters, building on other people's stuff. Lancelot was introduced by a Frenchman who I imagine him as just like a self-insert. He was just like, well, let me get in there with Lancelot du Lac. There's so much that isn't OG, but because the legends are so old, we think of them as permanent. Like Sir Gawain, not always there. The knights swap in and out. Arthur's, lineage, who he's related to, that changes. So I see myself as just I was up to bat this time. And there will be someone behind me who is also going to be contributing to the canon of Arthuriana, and there's going to be someone in the future. It's going to be other people, but I just think I see a steady stream of certain types of writers who have been able to do this and get it published and have it be held up as iconic. And then I'm like, it was my turn.
I love it. That's good. All right, this is to both of you. If Legendborn and Shadowshaper, if the characters from both, you guys decided to do a crossover book, what would that look like? What would that sound like? Who would be in it?
That's a great question.
Oh, this is such a good question. Okay. Well, Caleb.
You mean Giant Elmo?
I just want to marry one of Daniel's characters. He's Caleb. I love him. That's for me. That's not for Bree. Okay, so serious question. Bree. I think Bree and Sierra would get along.
Oh yeah, they'd be homies. Absolutely, that would be amazing. That would be really great.
Hilarious together, and I feel like they would go off and leave other people. I don't think that they would hang out. They would be like, "No, we're good."
Right? No, they would. They have a lot to talk about. All right, there's all these different powers from all these different sources coming together at different times. Create a whole new one out of the three.
Yes, they would be, and they would be able to be like, and then how there's always some old dude that is causing
some old white dude.
Yeah, she's like, oh, you have there's always some old white dude who messed you up or tried to mess you up, and so what do you so they'd be talking about that, and then I think they'd talk about boys. I feel like Sierra would give Bree really good boy advice. Actually,
that's good to hear. She has been in some. I wouldn't really call it a triangle because Robbie was kind of on the way out by the, there were some complicated moments in there, but I think Sierra's a wise woman for sure, and she'd be giving advice. I could see the whole Legendborn crew going on I don't want to say a field trip, but taking a vacation to New York City, and Sierra meeting them all at the airport, and they all go out and get arroz con gandules together.
Yeah,
it's good. I love it.
I think you guys should write that book.
We should write one scene.
I'm ready for it. Let me know when we should have our next event. I'm in for that.
That'd be great.
Talk about music. How does music influence you and your writing, your everything? Talk about music in your books and yourself.
Yeah, Daniel, you take this one.
Oh shit! It's not my event. I love music.
I know, but I think about music. We were just talking about Shadowshaper. I think about music in that. It just comes up over and over again.
Mm-hmm. For me, it really is like a connective tissue in life, I guess. It's just how I process emotions in the world, and when things are bad, that's the lifeline to get out of it. So I try to make characters that have, and I guess I've just felt so many different relationships to music throughout my life in different ways, and as someone who plays it and someone who listens to it and different kinds of music, it just seems so there's so much to do with music on the page. And so I just try to, honestly, it's just me being honest about what a character as best as I can imagine would do, with music. But what about you?
And, for me, my relationship with music and writing is very much I use it to help me get into a certain mood, to build scenes. So for this book, usually I use film scores so that I can have them on while I write, so there's no words. And the one that got the most play, hands down, for this book was Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the film score. because like emotionally it goes to all the places. Like, you know, you have the sort of like heroic character in Captain America, but then there's betrayal, and then there's reveals, and then there's whole systems getting revealed to be not as pristine as you thought. So yeah, that was that. Did we lose Daniel?
Huh?
Are you still there?
Video. We just lost you only. He's there.
Yeah, okay. We hear you. We don't see you.
You don't see
me?
Can you see us still? I mean, well, you can't see me.
Am I back?
Nope.
No.
Oh, all right. We'll keep going. You know.
All right. Yeah. So, what has your latest book taught you, and how will you apply that for your next project? That's to both of you.
I mean, I can tell you that this book, Legendborn, I'm working on Legendborn 2 now. I've learned a lot more about not being overly precious about drafts. Like when you're drafting anything, I mean, drafting doesn't go away for me. I don't have like a hard stop and then I never draft. It's like I draft and then you revise, and then sometimes you need new material, so you're back to drafting again. So to not be as precious about it, to know that I come alive and I'm a beast on revisions. Like the things that I can get a book to do during my revisions is amazing. And the stuff that I'm doing while drafting, I just can't get too hung up on it.
Wait, I'm trying to come back. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
No, we can't see or hear you. Well, we can hear you. We just can't see you. Hang on.
How about now?
I'm going to turn yours on and off.
Oh, okay.
No.
Hey.
Did someone say using that teddy
rat?
Oh my gosh.
I can see me. All right. It's all right. My voice speaks for itself. What was, man. It's hard. I can't, there's so much I can't talk about, which is not a brag, but it sounds like it. But I genuinely cannot talk about stuff. But I will say this. Right now I'm part of this big collaborative project through Star Wars, and like working with other writers. It's functionally like a writer's room on a TV show. And I'm back. Hey, what's up? And that is such a cool experience. Just like seeing, it's like, it's probably not for nothing. It's probably connected to the fact that on my other project, I am doing more kind of the outlining and construction, and, just getting really nerdy about the story before I even write it, which, like I said, I've never done before. So, working with like the idea in mind of story architecture with a group of people who are all responsible for different parts of it, and then, meet regularly to kind of bounce different things off each other and check in and like complain on Slack and all that stuff. Like, it's fun, yes, and it's like great in all these different ways, but also it's just been so cool to learn, about what that's like collaboratively, and then bring that to my own individual process and kind of see how all those different things work on a bigger scale and then on a smaller scale. So I'm just really enjoying that. That's the High Republic for Star Wars, and then my own projects that I can't talk about. But Flood City is a middle grade book about the world after the floods have taken over, and it comes out in February.
Okay, we will look for that. So just one last question from you both. We need some YA and MG recommendations. What should we be reading next?
So I can tell you, I actually don't know if this is MG. I want to say it is, but I'm not sure. The graphic novels, I think by, is it Cami Garcia? That are the DC.
Oh, the Marvel ones?
The DC ones where it's like Beast Boy and
right. Yeah, those are really good.
I'm really enjoying those, partially because Piccolo is doing the art, and Gabriel Piccolo is an artist.
Oh, he's amazing.
He's amazing, and he was a fan artist first, and was drawing the Teen Titans like for the love of it, and then now he's drawing whole graphic novels of those characters. So I would recommend that for the middle grade. And then Daniel, you've got
I'm just backing up books. Let me see. I haven't actually read a lot of these, but I'm not anyway. Look, Mickey Kendall is amazing.
Yes, she is.
Twitter,
Hood Feminism is an amazing book. She's an amazing person. Check that out. This is not my way, but you know, it could be Cemetery Boys. Of course, you've all heard of
Love
it.
Cemetery Boys. That was really good.
Elazzo just came out.
Oh yeah, good one.
From Levine Pedrito. Here is Ray Bear by Jordan Ikueko. There's just so many good books coming out these days, people. It's an amazing time for books.
Yes, we are very lucky.
Yeah, these ones you probably already know.
Oh yes, yes.
A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow, another contemporary fantasy book that came out this year, and I just feel like
I love the hell out of that book.
Yeah.
And Song of Raisin Ruin is next on my list.
And Song of Raisin Ruin by Roseanne Brown, and announced that it was optioned for a TV show at ABC Studios.
Yeah.
So
What? That's awesome.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Wow.
Good stuff.
That's probably the one good thing about this pandemic is we get to see a lot more stuff. Because all right, well, I just want to say thank you. That was so much fun. You guys were amazing. We truly appreciate you coming out here and doing this with us tonight. Thank everybody for showing up. Make sure you buy some books. If you get buy a copy of Legendborn tonight, you will get a signed book plate from Tracy. We still have a few left, so make sure you hit that green button and buy that. You could also buy Daniel's book. You guys, Shadowshaper Cipher series. There's 3 books in that series, so get those too. So have a great night, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and I'll be on Legendborn #Legendborn launch. If we didn't get your questions, I'll check them after this
On Twitter right now.
Twitter. Yeah.
All right, head over to Twitter. #Legendborn.
Hey, everybody.
Good night.
Y'all.